folks, how you doing? Now, I'll tell you what, I've been watching this series over on Jesus Words Only on dispensationalism. And, I've been out of Christianity for 30 years. And back in the day when I left, dispensationalism was basically the way I had heard it, let me put it that way, was they had taken the seven churches of Revelation and had kind of like parceled them out, as dispensations over the past couple thousand years, and that's all I knew about dispensationalism. Well, come to find out what it really is no, they're saying the dispensation of the law was from Abraham to Yeshua, Abraham to the cross, and then the dispensation of the law, right, was phased out. And, and after the cross, now it's the dispensation of grace, right? Law is no more, been phased out, right? Now it's all grace. And how, God dang, man. These fundamentalist preachers, that are pure Paul, even to the point, folks, of ridiculing and mocking. I mean, it's a sickening thing to watch. But you listen to this guy Robert Breaker, and he is just mocking the Sermon on the Mount and anybody who thinks it has any relevancy today. Right, and there's a lot of guys out there doing that stuff, openly mocking Yeshua, openly mocking his teachings. These are men that never knew that he is the prophet like Moses and that God himself speaks through the mouth of Yeshua. Little do these idiots know that they are mocking the living God and holding him up to ridicule. How little do they realize what they are doing. And I'll tell you something. I've noticed a trend, and I don't want to belabor this too much, but you do realize, of course, that it was in the United States, right? The founding of our country was the first time the Bible was legalized, first time a common man could own a copy of the Bible without having, a death penalty hanging over his head if he got caught with it, right? First time. And anyway, so it looks like the word in America took two different roads. In the South, they preached Paul. They preached dispensationalism. They preached Paul, and Paul was convenient for them to preach because in Paul, you did not have to release your slaves. In Paul, you got to keep your slaves. In Yeshua, you had to set the slaves free. You had to set them free, and they did. Right? South didn't, the North did. What happened to the South? At the end of the war, Grant and Sherman's march, oh geez, man, they just burned down the South. They burned down every home, every plantation, every orchard. It was absolute, total scorched earth. And after the war, after they had assassinated Lincoln, who wanted to restore the South with kindness and mercy, well, after they got rid of Lincoln, they put a heavy hand on the South. Heavy, heavy, heavy hand, right? That's why there's still animosity today because of, how the northern bankers, the New York bankers, what they did to the people of the South. Right? What they did to them was terrible. Anyway, history. So that's what happened to a people who received the words of Paul as their country. What's this called? The Confederate United States was brought to desolation. You go and you take a look at Germany, World War II, and just prior to that, and there was a movement in Germany that had begun at the turn of the century. I think the guy's his last name was Wrede. And Doug was bringing this out. And he had launched a movement against Paul when he had done his research and discovered that there was not one single quote or teaching of Yahshua in all the epistles of Paul. He was absolutely right. And he started a Back to Yahshua movement in Germany, right? Well, the serpent had his champion, and his champion's name was Bultmann. And Bultmann was a theologian, and he rose up and he utterly decimated this movement. He turned the nation away from Yahshua and totally to Paul, and convinced the nation that Yahshua and his teachings were, that men were instructed by God to abandon the teachings of Yahshua and only adhere to the teachings of Paul, which is lawlessness. Well, it wasn't too long after that we got the rise of Adolf Hitler in Nazi Germany. And I'll tell you what, old Adolf loved Paul. Oh, he loved Paul, was his favorite apostle, alongside himself. So that's two examples of nations that were cursed, absolutely cursed and brought to desolation when they went pure Paul. Southern U.S., Nazi Germany, and unfortunately today the United States of America, where Christianity has gone full Paul. And our nation is under a curse. It's under a terrible curse that has been brought upon us by the Pauline Christians. Everywhere Paul is preached, everywhere he is preached, he is followed by the curse. Anybody who imbibes Paul imbibes a curse. And woe unto America. Woe unto those Christians. Woe. Oh. It is going to go so bad for these people. Oh, it is going to go so terrible. Oh, Jesus, going to go bad for the Christians. But it is going to be well with the righteous. It is going to be well with those who do cling to the words and the teachings of Yahshua, who actually dwell in these words, who practice his words. It's going to go well with you. It will go well with you. It will go well with the righteous, but it will be hell on earth for the Christians. The only shot we have, folks, is to overthrow Paul. When we overthrow Paul, when we absolutely devastate, when we desolate Paul, you're going to see the rise and the resurrection of the United States of America, but we're going to desolate and we're going to overthrow Paul. Saul of Tarsus will be overthrown. And as he is overthrown, you are going to begin to see, and I don't care what the Christian prophets are saying, but when you see the covenant of our Father established once again into the hearts of his people, when his covenant is established within us, when his covenant is established within our heart, within our mind, in that day, you're going to begin to see the resurrection of the United States. But at that time, folks, you're going to have a boatload of dead Christians. You're going to have a boatload of dead Christians. I had a vision that occurred twice to me over various time periods. And what his vision was is I'd seen this like a white fleece. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at a map of the United States, and it's like a white fleece that you could say this is either a fleece, or you could say I'm looking at clouds, white clouds. But it was it descended over the entire continental United States, and it stayed there, But when it lifted, there was only 70 million Americans left. And I saw this vision twice. I saw it twice. And as I say, it'll go well with the remnant. It'll go well with the righteous, but it is going to be great tribulation for the Christians because they have imbibed the spirit of the serpent. The words of Paul are like the eggs of an adder. And as people brood over them and meditate over them, they hatch and they give birth to serpents. Very deadly, deadly, poisonous serpents. And that's what happens in the heart of a Christian when he imbibes Paul, is he is given birth to the serpent.